Hey, y'all. I'm going to talk a bit about the highly sensitive, maybe empathic person and an incredible amount of rage and anger. And if that happens inside of the same person, that creates a sometimes a toxic situation, right? Because what does the body then do with that anger and that rage, especially if you are intelligent enough to watch the situations that you've been in, especially you get into your adult relationships, and I'm all speaking from first person here. Um, those of us who, being men who were way over on the highly sensitive or maybe empathic um, side of the spectrum, and the empathic oftentimes means there's been trauma early in childhood and we've already disconnected from internal experience. So what we've done then is our brain has taken our focus, and instead of feeling in and feeling out and feeling in and feeling out, feeling in felt like shit. So we just kept feeling out. So from one point of view, you can say it's distracting. From the other point of view, it's just keeping our attention in places that feel better, which creates the empathic experience is that we're feeling out here, but we're also tracking other dangerous experiences like abuse or alcoholism or narcissism or bullying or any of that kind of thing. So we're tracking specifically for those. Did you realize that you're a highly sensitive person, but life still is calling you forward to do something? And life will, just like with a weed, pushing the weed up through this little crack in the sidewalk, it is going to shove itself through. And what it uses, that's love of life. That is the force of love of life, which presents itself as anger, as rage, because it has to break through. So then all of a sudden you're an adult identifying with your highly sensitive, maybe damaged nature. And so you've got yourself secluded, you're withdrawn from life, from other people. Maybe you realize that you are kind of a toxic element in your relationships, that you've identified with your highly sensitive nature, so you can connect with people very deeply. But then all of a sudden, this rage that's been coming through you, this like intense love for life that's been coming through you, but because you never really learned how to connect with and really help to aim that rage, that love force straight up. It comes up and then it shoots out to the side and it spills over into your relationship, and then you become a damaging force. And when you get quiet and you reflect back on the relationships that you've been in, you realize that you are a damaging force. Birth of shame. Shame is born. You realize, like, oh my God, I'm a piece of whatever. So then you do the next logical thing is you pull yourself out of relationships, you pull yourself out of jobs, you pull yourself away from people, knowing that you're going to miss those life-giving exchanges with people, because that's what you are. You are this being that's here to continue to make connections, because that's what gives life, is the this is in the relating. In the relating, there's an oscillation that happens between your soul and their soul. And in that oscillation, there's energy that comes up and grows, which is amazing. But you can't engage in those because you realize that you are toxic, that you poison those things somehow. Maybe it's because, and you start to go looking for it, and it's from your trauma as a childhood or from regular complex PTSD sort of things, created a traumatized situation in your nervous system. And maybe that's where you are. I've actually been speaking with a number of guys, and I don't know when you watch this, but recently, guys that find themselves in this situation, and beautiful men. And what I'm most excited about, well, A is I'm connecting with other really sensitive and reflective, deeply feeling, curious, nervous, apprehensive, tentative, But reluctantly passionate guys means you haven't successfully suppressed the amount of force that life is using to try to wake you back up. But you've got a track record of destroying shit. And even if you're maybe still in a relationship, you are hearing from your woman or your man, depending on whatever your sexual orientation is, your significant partner, your intimate partner, that you're not getting it, that you're so close, that you've got the presence, that you've got the consciousness, but they're not feeling it. They're not feeling some kind of energetic thing that you need to figure out. And they're not, as with most people, they're not good coaches. They can't really put exact words for what you need to do to figure out how to actually show up as your future self will, but you're not there yet. So you're showing up in some kind of a contorted way, which makes you reactive, makes you go to sleep, makes you dangerous. So now maybe you have a string of failed relationships. And why the hell to get in another relationship? Because you know what your trend is, you know what you do. So now you're retracting because you have to retract all the way back until you figure out the game. That's what I've been playing with this week is the game. What can we do to help us figure out what this anger is? When we figure out what it is, what can we do? What can I do with what I have so that I can be angry and on point using my highly sensitive nature at the same time? And if you look at your favorite artists, somehow they've got the reason why they're your favorite artist may mean, or the reason why maybe the reason why they are your favorite artists maybe, especially if you get into some of the heavier music, is if they've got an exquisite ability to really remain highly sensitive and move that rage through. It really helps you find yourself in a way you're basically co-regulating with that artist, and they're helping you take a tour of yourself. But there's been a thing that I have found in my own meditations that allows gives me a daily ritual that has been the most profound thing for me. And I'll share it with you here. But it's what I do with my one-on-one clients. It's what my teachers showed me, and I played with it. Right? They showed me a little game, and I took it home and I played with it because it's what we do. We just fiddle around with things, right? And then when we come across something really cool, we share it. And so I'll share it with you in a second. But I took myself to see a movie last night, Gladiator 2. Found myself tearing up in multiple times of the movie. And at one point I stopped. Well, I didn't stop because the movie was still going. And I pulled my phone. Fortunately, it was like all dim here, but I keep my little notes section on my phone here. And I got a reminder for me of what it is that I'm here to do. What's the work that I'm here to do? And number one is remember who you are. Note to self. Remember who you are. Number one. Number two, find the others. Just keep it simple. So easy to say. Um, how do I organize my life and my relationships and my diet and my daily rituals in such a way that I've got the best chance of having the awakening experience of this is who I am. This is what I am today, right now. Tomorrow, it's going to be bigger, more expanded because things are still coming. So remembering who I am ends up requiring some kind of daily ritual to soften the resistance to who I am. So softening the resistance to who I am. And if you had trauma as a kid, there's going to be a shit ton of resistance in your body because life was like all of a sudden you got sprung into this planet, into a body, and then it's a shit storm. Stuff coming at you, abuse coming at you, narcissism, bullying, just daily lack of safety and having to deal. So you developed these methods of dealing all the while you were holding resistance so that you could keep yourself protected. And that protection shell is ends up what ends up sucking the life out of you, out of me later on. That resistance shell prevented me from awakening, from remembering who I was. So then I couldn't have, so if I couldn't remember who I was and who I am, then I never can get to number two. I can't ever find the others. So if I don't know who I am and then I try to find the others, it means I'm going to be selling, I'm going to be manipulating, I'm going to be pitching, I'm going to be trying to like extract money from others, which just is furthering the violence. So we'll go into this for a second here, the yawn yoga. This is the game that I played that my teacher gave me enough things to fiddle with. And I've talked about this before, playing with the yawn. So if you've got a lot of resistance in there, you've got a lot of trauma, and you sit down and you be quiet and you start to focus in on yourself, you might just re-traumatize yourself. It's like it's not a happy situation in here because your nervous system is still on alert. You're still in fight, flight, freeze. So how do we every single day in a very easy, pleasant way dissolve the fight, flight, freeze? How do we effortlessly dissolve the fight, flight, freeze? The fight, flight, freeze holds the shell. The shell keeps us asleep, keeps us from seeing reality, and keeps us living a lie. Will eventually get us living in isolation, away from all of the other people, because that's the only, we realize how much we're not being authentic, not being in integrity. And that feels horrible because we realize somehow we want to, like, we need to live in integrity. Everything needs to fit together. But if we are bringing forth a contorted, asleep, pained, damaging, violent, potentially violent, whether it's passive aggressive, narcissistic, if we realize that we all have narcissistic tendencies, if you think you don't, then that means you are dangerous because you are a product of the culture. And look at what the culture is doing. Okay. So we with effortlessness and curiosity can find a way to look inside in a particular way, at least I did, that seems to be easing the anger, the rage, the unpredictability, the reactivity, and maybe the narcissistic tendencies, which is how can I just extract resources from the world? Because that feels okay, keeps us fed, but it doesn't feel nearly as good as finding a way to really co-regulate and connect with the world. And that also happens to make us less violent, which means we have less shame. And anybody have shame in there where we realize that there's some anger that's been going out, which produces violence, which makes us go, shit, I really have a thing that's kind of a piece of shit about me. Right? That would be more of the anxious attachment style, and the avoidant attachment style might be just recognizing that everybody else is the violent one, and so we just push away. Either way, we're finding a way to not merge. So let's go into it here with the yawn yoga. Yoga means union, and union, unifying of things that are separate. That's the experience. That's the word. Yoga doesn't mean what you do. Yoga is the name for the world, or the world and the experience perception of, oh God, I'm home. So playing with that yan yoga, I've talked about this before. You can watch the yan yoga videos or breathing video when breathing. There's another video in my thread here that describes breathing when thinking of breath work makes you panic. So I do this in the morning. I do it throughout the day. We recognize we'll start with this. There's um, three experiences of consciousness, three levels of consciousness: the waking, the dreaming, and the deep dreamless. Your rage really is can access the world in the waking state, but also in the dream state, right? You can dream and be really pissed off in the dream state. Deep dreamless state. So what if there was a way that you could easily have a thread at all times in the day from your waking state, like we are right now, into the deep dreamless state? The first answer is, oh man, I would be able to disperse my rage completely. That would be awesome. That would make me not violent and then very peaceful. But what if we want a more of a nuanced response than that? Look at the weed trying to grow up through the crack in the sidewalk. If it had dispersed all of its rage, it's just going to get to the bottom of underneath the sidewalk. It's going to get there and it's just going to go. It's not actually going to live. Love needs to have a component of force that's very specifically aimed that acts as rage that will come up through that crack in the sidewalk to get up to experience the sun. So, from the waking state, having a conscious ritual practice where you can access the deep dreamless state doesn't disperse the anger, but really helps to aim it. And aiming it is going to require your highly sensitive nature to really see clearly and aim itself up through that crack using the appropriate amount of rage. Okay. So then you are remembering who you are in a way that is specifically finding the gap that needs to be penetrated, needs to be broken through. And if the rage isn't appropriately aimed, it's going to go off to the side and it's going to injure others or injure yourself in others' names, going to injure, just going to cause injury, which is going to continue to prove to your inside narrative of what you and who you are, prove to you that you are a dangerous force on the planet, which then logically will have you retract. Okay. So here's the practice that I've been playing with that has allowed me to feel, not think, but feel my way into that deep dreamless state that I've been witnessing then, myself having more awakening, less resistance, less conflict, but more in an easy receiving of life and the things that I'm looking for to have happen in life. The meaningful things, the meaningful exchanges with my loved ones, the meaningful growth in my business, the meaningful growth in exchanges with other people. And that gets from number one, which is remember who I am, to number two is find the others. And then it just becomes, for me, the most joyous game. Like, I am done with, I've raised my kids, I've had the family. What else do I need to do for the rest of my life? Just have as much fun as possible. As much fun as possible for me is remember who I am, find the others. I'm in Starbucks and had a delightful interaction with the checker. Had another one with this woman who was the checker at Safeway last night with this like radiant pink purple hair, and it was just had me so joyous that somebody was like, I am gonna rock this hairdo. And I was like, that is the best thing because I can't do it. And so we had a great exchange there. She gave me her own personal discount on some stuff, so that helped too. Um, anyway, so keep getting distracted. Let's go into it a little bit here. All right. So the resistance is the issue. The resistance is the problem. The internal resistance, the belief that I've got a problem. I'm something I have to keep part of me down because otherwise it's bad when it comes out. So that's true, partially true. The truth is, if I have an inappropriate expression, it's not gonna fit with life. So how do we make more appropriate expressions? Not repressing of anger, but using an intelligence that will actually help nuance the anger so it's appropriate for the moment, which will allow you to then re-engage with your intimate partner or with your friends and with your work in a way that feels just more content, and satisfied. And excited for the growth that's now coming because you quit shooting your damn self in the foot. And you don't have to figure out it's more about trauma and complex PTSD and all these other things because you actually have a thing that you do that's bringing you back to life and getting you excited about moving forward in life. You just don't have time anymore to think about the things that are broken because they're just not broken anymore. Okay. And the yawn is what? It is the deep dreamless state calling you in. It's an elevator waiting to take you there. So you don't even have to burrow your way in. You don't have to go find it. You can sit right where you are and call the yawn right now. With me. Okay. So we're doing it right now. And if you start to feel the softening sensation, you're doing it right. If you hear your mind going, yeah, but I have this, Craig, I have this, Craig, I have this, Craig, that's fine. But there's the one thing you have control over is your focus. Do you want to rest your focus on the anxious thoughts, which will pull you back into hypervigilance, pull you back into dangerousness for yourself and for others? Or do you want to move your focus back over to curiosity? Like, what's the sensation of this yawn? If I bring it right here? Or do I bring it down here into belly button? Remember, there are these three positions in the Dirga Pranayam. That's the yogic term that just means here's a game that you guys can play with the yawn that will help you make life better. End of story. That's all yoga is. A game that you can play so that life gets better. Period. Here's one of those games. Okay. The yawn is not me sitting in meditation looking around for something, but me going, all right, I can call the yawn in. I'm going to push the spiritual elevator button and pull me into the sensation right now where things start to soften. Boy, that feels good. Then there's the second one that comes up. We are going to be really good yawn mechanics. Now I can feel like my whole world is actually getting really floaty, like I just got on a cloud. Awesome. That's actually me now entering a trance state. So I'm coming into a trance state where I'm actually noticing part of me is awake, part of me is in dream state. This is where time and space get a little bit weird. Now I'm actually feeling out and I'm feeling in. The yawn has actually started to soften the vagus nerve, has started to re-regulate my nervous system, is taking me out of a traumatized state, trying to take me out of a hypervigilant state, giving me a channel back into my body and creating a state of peace. That's why we've been doing it ever since before we could breathe. We've been doing it since we were in the womb. Now I'm going to focus down here. If I just try to aim the yawn here, aiming the yawn here, really feeling out and then feeling in, but you're going to play with it. You're going to play with it. Maybe your mind is going, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? I can't yawn. I can't wrong. It doesn't matter. You should use the same amount of effort that you would be using to like push a little marble around a table. Like it doesn't take any effort at all because you call the yawn in and it might not be a great big yawn. You can come in, you can ask, is the yawn here? And then you wait to see if the yawn, sorry, a call. When I think about who that was, it was calling. Always seems to call when I'm getting into the meditative state, which is something you might actually notice that when you start to find that yawn connection, and you find it somewhere, and you become really curious in there, and you're feeling and looking around, and you're not thinking the words, but you're just like, oh, I'm feeling and looking around. And then you feel out. And then all of a sudden, synchronistic shit happens in your life. Somebody calls. The thing that you've been looking for then starts to put itself together. If you listen to Abraham Hicks, this is the step three that they talk about. Step one, step two, take care of themselves. Step three is you finding a way to get yourself into receivership, receiver mode. That's what Yan Yoga is. Getting yourself in receiver mode so the things that you've been wanting to have happen in your life start to come together. And they're able to come together now because you are thinning the veil of resistance by accessing the yawn and feeling it. This is all you need to do. I had gotten away from this practice, and I was, even this fall, I was really anxious and resistant. I found myself just kind of locked in a place. And then a while back, I remembered, Craig, you teach this stuff. You teach this stuff because you get yourself in these lockdown places. And so maybe listen to your own words, Craig, and play with it again and see, does it still work? Everything in my life has shifted in this last week and a half since I started playing with this real specific yawn yoga in the mornings and then throughout the day by just re radically and ridiculously relaxing. And the relaxing has proved to me to be the thing that dissolves a bit of this trauma patch freeze shell. And that's my pattern, is to become deer in the headlights. I get overwhelmed, deer in the headlights, and then everything's a no. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that because I can't. I'm like, ah. And then I get into trying to figure it out, thinking that I have some kind of like high powered brain. So not the case. And then I just took my attention down to behind the belly button, and there was a spontaneous breath. There was a spontaneous yawn that opened up. So it's our job to co-create with the yawn. This is the other pivotal part. The yawn doesn't come in and unilaterally save us. We have to co-create with it. It's a couple's dance. The yawn represents our innate intelligence that holds the vibration of what we want. Our ego self, which is a great thing, when kept at the right size, a great thing that we get to go out and explore things that feel good. So we find something that feels good out here, and we hold it for a second, and we see if there's a resonation with our core innate intelligence, and when, because it's in there holding the vibration of what it is that we want, and we find something out here that would have us grow into a relationship or into a sport or into a discipline or into a job that we haven't played with yet. We're out here looking and we basically hold it up. We're like, how does this feel? And if our internal self goes, yes, 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 then we can keep curiously moving in that direction. Does that make sense? So what I was doing was figuring out, how do I co-create? So I got out of co-creating with myself in my innate being. I was like, oh, I've got this stuff. And then I became deer in the headlights. So I came back and I'm spending more time in the morning, more time in the afternoon, more time in the evening, and more time while I'm driving. Whenever I have a moment, I will turn in and I'll look to see, where's this yawn thing coming in? And the radical movement that takes actually a little bit of anger on your part is, I am going to do this when there's a whole bunch of other things that should be done. F those things. I am going to relax myself in the face of all these other things that need to be done, because in that aligning myself with the yawn, I'm aligning myself with the bigger intelligence that when I get that co-creation alignment right, way more gets done in the name of love, in the name of whatever it is that will be joyous and rewarding and loving and serving than I would ever be able to do if I put the yawn off and I went to try to do my to-do list. Way more gets done. And for me, this was a practice that I wasn't getting, I didn't have when I would listen to a lot of the Abraham Hicks stuff because I couldn't remember what am I supposed to do on that step three. Now I know that technically I can always ask for, do I have a yawn here? And that yawn is that source energy feeling into me when I ask every moment. And now what's the next little cool thing? Should you still be on here? Should you get called to do this work? Because, remember who you are, find the others. If it becomes the best game in town because you're like, oh my gosh, I've gotten my life wrong the entire time, but this is amazing. Then what becomes really fun is, you know how yawns are contagious? Just by playing with the question, where's the yawn here? Or I might look at where's the yawn in the room? You can unilaterally pull source intelligence into a space. And this is one of the ways that you can help find the others by helping them find their own source intelligence by bringing a yawn into yourself and into the space between you. There's a lot more, and if that becomes a really compelling game, the universe will show you that like this is what you're here for. Um, yeah, and then there's a really fun and complex game that can be played there should you decide to play it. If you've seen my other videos, that's all I'm doing is I'm calling the yawn in, but then there's a way that the yawn actually engages, finds its way into the source intelligence for source energy, finds its way into a particular human and moves up and down the Sushumna channel and creates a physiology where there's an enduring awakening experience. Clearly, I'm no master at that because I get myself into that deer in the headlights maneuver still. But it's a really fun game to play. And it's when you play it with somebody else, it does help you actually remember who you are much more often and can continue to help your own system, your own experience be closer to feeling awake and easy and content and driven and excited about what's coming next. Questions, responses, I love to hear them. If you would share them in the comments down below, that's awesome. Um, if you want to talk to me specifically about something that's coming up for you, feel free to send me an email. I have a group setting. I teach this stuff for other providers, and depending on when you're watching this, looking at starting a group where we get together and practice these manifestation skills once a week for a much lower cost, just getting together and doing this as a group, because as a group, the yawn is much more easily accessible. And then it's another layer of feeling included in this experience, if that feels compelling. Okay. Thanks, you all. See you on the next one.